Welcome back, little flexers. This is the meta in 8 minutes. I'm going to show to you guys 4 tournaments from this last week and the results of those tournaments, kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown on what happened, what we should see in the future, and what it means for the metagame. So the first deck that we have here that is absolutely destroying, like we talked about last week, is Eternatus. Now, Eternatus is just the beat stick deck of the format, right? It goes hard, it goes fast, and aren't a ton of counters to the 340 health and the 270 damage output that it can put out fairly easily, like from turn 2 on. We see here in the Pokex S2 Infinity Last Chance Qualifier, we had 63 players. Brandon Jones, aka Trainer Tips B from Twitter, taking the win at 8-0-1 with an Eternatus list that featured Crushing Hammer. This is going to be a common theme throughout these results, is the recurrence of Crushing Hammer. We see a couple of Picaroms in the top 8 as well, so you got to be thinking that if you're playing a deck moving forward, make sure that you can handle a Crushing Hammer going against you. Eternatus finishing up with 3 spots in the top 16, as well as, the usual suspects here of ADPZ and Blacephalon. We have 1 Decidueye Goons and 1 Centiskorch, which are of note. I think Centiskorch is a decent play in the fact that it can actually beat ADPZ if you have the right pieces, but it doesn't still, I have my reservations about the deck, but it can hang. It's like the top of the meta is absolutely looking like Eternatus, ADPZ, and then the decks that can hang with those being Mewtwo and Centiskorch. We move on down the line. By the way, thank you so much to Cash Vindar Singh Man for his excellent results and these great graphics. We see in Hegster, happened on Friday. 165 players. Again here, Eternatus comes out on top with a finals against Mewtwo Welder. Mewtwo Welder is one of those decks that, while I don't believe it has the consistency to, just be a go-to choice for me, I think that it can hang with the big boys. Being able to do 300 damage on turn 2 is great. Being able to have a litany of various attacks, anywhere from, Flareon GX to Alolan Muck and Muck GX to the Charizard to Reshiram and Charizard to Naganadel. There are a bunch of viable attackers for the Mewtwo Welder deck to be able to use to create winning board positions against a lot of decks. We see also here, again, the domination by Eternatus, 6 Eternatus decks in the top 32. And some old favorites here in Picarom showing up. We have a little bit of Mad Party sprinkled in. And one thing that was very interesting about this tournament was that we saw Garchomp Giratina Tag Team GX show up. There were 3 in the top 32, none getting, up higher into, top 8, but worth noting that this deck might be on the rise. We have here our tournament from Full Grip. I'm super happy to bring this to you guys. These are the results from the Full Grip tournament. You'll see here on the graphic on the bottom right that ADPZ and Eternatus, let's see, I have 16 there. Yeah, it comprised more than half of the metagame of the 64-player tournament. So worth noting that this tournament was particularly centralized in the sense that there were just a very core pocket of decks that were played, and everything else kind of fall to the wayside. ADPZ dominated this Full Grip tournament, having 5 out of the top 8 slots. We also saw here at the number 2 slot, Michael Zealy. He played Crushing Hammers in his list. So again, I'm going to come back to this theory that Crushing Hammer is a card on the rise. You have a lot of decks that struggle against Crushing Hammer. Notably ADP, although they do have a way around it in the form of Metal Saucer and Energy Switch, and Eternatus. They do have a way around that in the form of Power Accelerator from an Eternatus V. But if you're Power Accelerating, you're not swinging for the big damage with the VMAX. So, it's kind of a give and take. Crushing Hammer, definitely a card to watch out for. See a couple of Eternatus as well in the top 8. One Eternatus was straight Eternatus, a list very similar to the one that I posted on this channel, where it's just go as fast as you can, go as hard as you can, as consistently as possible with Zigzagoons and Scoop Up Nets. We also see Stephen Abbott at number 6 with his Poison Eternatus, utilizing Slowbro, Garbodor, and Toxicroak to do big damage with Poison to set up for Dread Ends from Eternatus, taking those one-shots against VMAX Pokemon. I think that's a very cool list. I've worked with Steven a little bit on it, and Poison Eternatus is definitely an interesting way to maybe swing the matchup against the VMAX decks in your favor. We also see, very notably, a Salamence list at number 3. Salamence is a cool card that has a decent matchup against ADP. So one to watch out for that maybe doesn't have the staying power, but at least has a favorable matchup against a top tier deck that would give it a reason to be played in the format. I know Andrew has been putting a lot of time into Salamence and coming back with pretty good results overall. So I would say Salamence a card to watch out for absolutely as the weeks progress. We also have the Sunday Open, which is finishing up. Right now, we have a finals match between Mewtwo and Eternatus, 2 decks, again, that are just completely shaping the format in the form of Eternatus being that big beat stick deck and Mewtwo being a deck that can hang. We see here in the top 9 decks that there were 3 Pikarams. Adding again, Crushing Hammer. Be prepared for it. 1 ADP, 1 Decidueye, and 1 Inteleon also make the list. I suspect that the Inteleon also leaned on some kind of Crushing Hammer strategy, as I do feel like that is probably the best way to play Inteleon. A lot of these slower decks, Inteleon, Pikaram, potentially even things like Centiskorch, can all find those slots for the Crushing Hammer because they need to slow the opponent down just enough to be able to get going, to be able to get their powerful attacks up. The 2 big decks, once again, are Eternatus and ADP. If your deck cannot be either one of those, then you should absolutely reconsider what you're going to play for the following week. Eternatus has shown up in spades and has done particularly well over this last week, with ADP right on its heels in terms of the number of total placements from these tournaments. We've also seen a lot of Pikaram. Pikaram being a deck that can win any matchup if you get a quick enough full blitz, if you get a quick enough GX attack of your preferred GX, if you can get a quick enough Boltund heading up. It's not a bad deck, absolutely. And if you can hit a couple Crushing Hammer, then that makes things all the better for you. We've also seen Mewtwo Welder. That's another deck that can absolutely hang at the top, and I would put it at probably like between tier 1 and tier 2. Maybe not tier 1 and maybe not as bad as tier 2, but one of those decks that can hang with the big boys. Definitely takes a good ADP-Z matchup and can do some things against Eternatus to make that matchup very difficult for the Eternatus player to win. I look at notably Reset Stamp being a card that Mewtwo can rely on to really hurt Eternatus in that late game. So that is the meta in 8 minutes. Let me know how you enjoyed this video down in the comments below. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video for more. I'll talk to you guys soon. Remember, good luck and also have fun.